Thanks for coming out. This is normally our Mount Pleasant Street Neighborhood Association's monthly meeting, the last Wednesday of the month from 6:30 to 8. We typically get together and talk about what the issues are. You see our neighborhood police officer, Bob Jones, right there. He does his best to try to get here for this meeting. So I appreciate his presence here. And if anybody is here looking for the crime watch side of this meeting, and you have something to talk to Bobby about, he's available. And see before he's going to dash off to a call or something scary happening, right? Other than that, I thought that I'd offer an opportunity here, and actually here, some of my other leaders, that we get some of, or all of, and it turns out we get all the candidates here tonight, for the special election of Ward 3 happening on March 28th, everybody? Am I right? March 28th, that's to select one of these fine candidates here to be your next representative here in Ward 3. What I'd like to do, if it's all right with all of you, is give each of them a few minutes, thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 minutes, to just tell us who they are, why they're running, and listen to what they have to say, and then we'll kind of move right down that way. And then what I'll do is, if you have a question, for any candidate, you just, I would appreciate if you'd raise your hand. I'll call on you. You tell me who you'd like to ask, or if the question's for all the candidates. And then we'll do our best to sort of moderate that situation. It's going to be a little crazy without microphones or anything like that. We do have the press here tonight, which is nice of them to come out and cover this, because now if any of the Ward 3 folks are on Facebook or read the internet or listen to the radio or watch the news, they'll actually have a chance to see some of this, so that's a good thing. So without any further ado, I'd like to go right. By the way, I'm Henry. I'm going to go right down the line here, and we'll start with Guy LaRock.
Hello, everyone. I'm Guy LaRock. I want to be a Ward 3 counselor.
Sorry, my fault. One thing I goofed up.
No, that thing has to be in front of me.
Yeah, only because we want the folks at WDSM to hear you too.
Okay. And
I'll just move down the line as we go.
I'd like to be a Ward City Councilor, Ward 3. I'm new at this. I've run politics before. I listen to people, that's my job. I'm an attorney. I had my office in downtown New Bedford for over 16 years. I've seen the changes that downtown's gone through. I mean, I feel safe walking there most nights. I didn't when I first opened law practice. I do a lot of criminal law. I do general practice as well. Some of the issues that I see that we have in Ward 3, unfortunately, criminal issues. I think if we can somehow get the cops or the police officers out there, who I fully support, and many people may not believe that as a criminal defense attorney that I support police officers, but I absolutely do. Into our parks, so our kids can play in our parks again. I don't know if you've been able to see the park down at the airport. It's an adorable little park. It has little airplanes and things you can jump on, and it feels safe there, and I want all of our parks to feel that way. Some other issues we have to deal with. We have somewhat of a homeless issue too that we have to try and solve. Every major intersection is being taken over, and I'm not quite sure how to answer that question. I know some places in Rhode Island have looked at it and are trying to come up with a solution for that. Again, willing to listen. We have a drug epidemic. Many people are dying in our area. Now with fentanyl being mixed in with heroin and cocaine, we need to address those issues too, and as a community come together and try to figure out how to attempt to solve this issue. It's been something that's been going on for years. We all know someone, a lot of us know someone in our families that struggle with drug addiction. It's time for us to try and get them the resources that they need. There are a lot of resources out there to keep the overdoses from happening, if that's possible. Those are just a few things. If you have any questions for me, feel free to ask me. I get to go first, so there you go. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kathy Davis. As you know, I was your Ward 3 City Councilor at one time. The years ago when I did, the same reason I'm running to again this time. I have been in the city for 60 years. I didn't come moving to the city, which is fine, but it's a wonderful city. It's a city I have supported my entire life, built businesses here, and yes, there are many issues facing New Bedford at this time, and I have always looked at it from a business standpoint. Taxes really affect not one category or another, they affect everyone, and it's, I think, one of the bigger problems, along just as important as crime and issues like that. But to find ways to bring businesses into the city, I've done some myself. Just got involved with another restaurant. It's actually my son-in-law. Some people think I'm an owner. I'm not. They just like my advice. Henry knows a lot about restaurants too. But my house here. I'm a mother, a grandmother of 10. Raised my children here. My children are raising their children here. And there's a reason. The city is important to us. It's not just a town to pass through. It's a city with such heritage and meaning. And working with other councilors, because no one councilor has the answer to all the problems. No one councilor is going to solve any issue in New Bedford. It's a team effort. It's understanding what the people need, working together, working as a bonded city council. And that's something I know that I'm able to do. And once again, I would like to be your Ward 3 City Councilor. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Hugh Dunn. I'm running to be your Ward 3 City Council. Thank you, Henry, for putting this together. I'm running because I think I bring a lot to the table, that I'll bring a lot to the council, and that I have a lot of experience advocating for the city already. Working as Congressman Bill Keating, I worked with our fire department to get them federal safety dollars so that we would have an appropriate staffing level at the department. Working with our commercial fishermen, I got us federal disaster relief money to keep them afloat. And I also worked for our veterans out of the New Bedford office, making sure that they got their federal benefits that they're owed for their sacrifices. Since then, I left and have been directing the South Coast Development Partnership. It's a regional economic development partnership. Projects that I focused on in the past were the Route 18 project, offshore wind, and South Coast Rail. And I think that's something that I bring to the table is this partnership is a consortium of businesses and leaders from both Fall River and New Bedford. So those are two communities that don't often work well together. And I think that I've been successful at keeping this partnership effective and focused. So I think that I can bring that consensus building to the City Council. I also see a lot of opportunity for Ward 3. I think that with the waterfront access and the highway access in the Hicks-Logan-Sawyer area, we can attract more businesses to this area. I think that the Building 19 parcel poses more opportunity, and I think that, well, it's the administration's job to really attract those. As a city councilor, I can bring my skill set to assist in that. Just recently, I got a state grant to attract businesses to this area to create a commercial real estate database that was awarded within the last few months. So I think that my focus on economic development will be useful to this ward because more jobs, more businesses landing here results in a more diversified tax base. So that's more funding for our schools, more funding for public safety. And I think that, I really can bring a lot to the table. And I've also been endorsed by Henry Bouquet, and by George Smith because of my experience in constituent services. So I'd appreciate your vote on March 28th. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jill Marie Usack, and I would like to thank Henry Bouquet for hosting this. I'm a born and bred resident of the city of New Bedford, and I'm probably the oldest one at the table, but I'm not going to hold their youth against them. I wanted to let you know that I am a banker by trade. I graduated the American Institute of Banking, and I hold degrees in finance and banking. I also have been a former member of the New Bedford School Committee, so I'm very familiar with education. I also held a 3-year seat on the charter school, so I do understand the difference between the monies in the Chapter 74 and 70 and how they're handled. I also was a former board member of PACE. I was a housing director for Bruce Morrell for PACE, so I understand the elderly, the fuel assistance, the economy of the elderly, and the needs. And also I've been a former director and a member and a past president of the Rotary Club. And I think I have a merit of education to bring to constituents the services they need. I'm extremely concerned for older residents, how some of them cannot afford housing and could lose their housing. They're not afraid of some different areas that they can go provided their income. I think we need to work together with other companies in the city, the zoning board, TIFs, for different businesses that come into the area to show that we are user-friendly and that we want to bring in new businesses. I'm also concerned about the education in the area. Although education doesn't fall under the council's jurisdiction, there are times when the Department of Education sends people before the board and the council to get extra funding. I'm a person that sees the bottom line. I scrutinize funding, and that's my main concern. Are you performing your job? Do you have accountability? And do you have proven results? Then we'll talk from there. I also feel that we have a problem with infrastructure in the city. I would like to see that done. I'm concerned about the Building 19. I'm not sure if that's a brownfield. It may be. If it is, there are certain regulations that cover brownfields and the safe remediation of any properties in the area. We're like every other ward in the city of Bedford, but we are a great ward. There's a lot we can do. There's a lot we can build upon. We're a well-situated community to attract businesses from afar. I think we need to become more business-friendly, and we have to look out for our elderly, our residents, the safety and infrastructure in this region. And if you elect me, this is what I plan to do for you. I give good constituency services. I have the support of a lot of people. I've worked with the Governor Baker. I am a state committee woman, I will tell you now, in the Republican Party. I've had some close contacts. I do a lot in the education area. And I feel that I consider this important. We're by the nonpartisan area. We need constituent services for all my communities, and I live in this ward. And what we get and we receive as residents is extremely important to me, being a long life member of this ward. So I hope that you would consider me for support. Jill Marie Usack. Thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm Stephanie Photo. As you know, I'm running for Ward 3 Councilor. I'm born and raised in New Bedford, 4th generation. And I'm running because in talking to my community members, one of the largest problems that I see is a disconnect between the community and the council, the community and the people in charge. When we talk to our neighbors, they feel like they're not part of what's going on in City Hall and that they can't, that it's this kind of elite club that they don't belong to. There's a reason why in the last preliminary there was a 3% voter turnout. I want to act as a liaison between the community and the politics. I want the community to be involved because studies show that an involved community creates better communities, less violence, less drug abuse. The more that we come together, the stronger we are. And people strongly believe that if there's somebody in the council that they can relate to, they would be more involved. I went to my first funeral due to violence when I was 10 years old. I've gone to countless funerals for opioid overdose. I can sit here and tell you what all the problems are, but I live them every day and I have my entire life. I can tell you what I think should be done, but my concern is for you to tell me what you need done and to come to me. I think that a better New Bedford starts with a better community, better communication, and that's why I'm running. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Mark Sajak. I was born in New Bedford. I was educated in the public schools of New Bedford. Graduated in 1982 from New Bedford High School. I was fortunate enough to be able to go away to school. I returned to New Bedford Bedford in 1990, and I took the bar exam, passed it, started practicing, and I've always practiced here in New Bedford. For the last 25 years or so, I've handled cases in the court systems of Massachusetts. Mostly I handle cases of families who are involved in the foster care system, either being appointed for the foster child or for a parent who is trying to make changes in their life in order to put their family back together. And unfortunately, we've had a spike in the number of cases filed here and in this county. And it has to do with the opiate epidemic that we all know has caused a lot of suffering in an awful lot of families. In terms of politics, I was lucky enough when I came back to New Bedford to be able to have an open seat and to be able to run in my home ward of Ward 6, which is the far south end. I was elected from a field of 4 candidates in 1991, and I served 2 terms until 1995. I was elected by my colleagues as city council president after 3 years in the council. What I do notice is after my family moved out of Ward 6. I didn't run for re-election. We had a house that we owned in Ward 5, just over the line. So I didn't run again. I was starting a family. I had 2 young children at the time, and I was starting a practice. But I think you always continue to want to be involved in your hometown, in your neighborhood. Everybody reads the paper about or follows it on the internet about what's happening in the city of New Bedford, and I have always done that. I was reappointed by my colleagues when Councilor Hodgson became sheriff, and I served another year as council at large in 1997. My children are all grown now. It's a little bit different being on the campaign trail after 20 or 25 years, but a lot of the problems are the same. When I was in Ward 6, I worked with, there was neighborhood associations then. I worked with the Cove Street Association. Some of the same problems that everyone here has seen. That there are places in Ward 3 where you can walk any time of the day and you feel safe. And there are some places where you don't feel safe. We see properties like the Building 19 property that is kind of right in the heart of Ward 3. And can that be redeveloped? Is there a huge brownfield issue once we knock the place down? I don't know if anybody knows. It was Building 19 for so long. But before that, it was Continental Screw. And we don't know until we take that building down, really, what's in the soil underneath it. But you would hope that we'd be able to put that parcel. It's huge. I drive by it at least 3 times a day in the course of my travels. And I would like to work on that project, just see that parcel back to good use. I do worry a little bit about the medical marijuana facility and its impact being so close to where the 2 highways intersect. But I think that will happen. I welcome anyone who has a view on that. I'm worried about accidents in that area, but all depending on the size of the place, I think we can work on those issues as a ward and as a neighborhood. So thank you very much, and I look forward to speaking to some of you later on.
All right, well, thank you very much, everybody. I think that went pretty well. I guess we can we'll take some questions. If you have any questions, who wants to go first? Yes, sir. It's a question for everybody? Or?
Yeah, question for everybody.
Okay.
You just hit on it, but obviously the medical marijuana facility on Nutbury Road. I live on Loftus Street, my name is Donald Ray, and I just like, I feel how everybody feels about that. I have no opinion myself, but I just want to know, for the record, how does everybody feel about the medical marijuana facility coming into our ward?
Okay, so do you want me to restate that, or do you understand what he's saying? He just wants to know what your opinion is on medical marijuana facility coming into Ward 3. A guy, I can start with you if you like, and then we'll switch it up.
I think marijuana is here to stay. The voters have said they want marijuana. It's going to change from medical marijuana to just use for pleasure. One of the problems, I think, because they're talking about putting it at the fish market, the traffic there is gonna be horrible. It's horrible now coming off 140, just trying to take a left right there. So I think that's gonna have to be addressed. Having that facility there, I thought about it, it's under 140, it's away from the houses. I mean, nothing good has been built there since, I think, what, Rosie's Restaurant many years ago. I think other than the traffic issue, which should be addressed there anyways, I don't think it's a terrible thing that it's there.
My thoughts on the medical marijuana. It's proven that it helps people that are in pain but with different diseases and stuff. Is it going to become a recreational drug? Probably. I've done a lot of research because of the opiate problem in the city. Many close people to me are affected by that epidemic. Marijuana is not a gateway drug to opiates, no more than drinking would be. So if anyone that has concerns about that aspect of marijuana, I agree with Gay. I got it right, Gay, that I'm worried about the location. That I've gone there for fish at Captain Frank's, and trying to get out of there it's a real pain in the neck. And that's with just 4 or 5 people shopping. So depending on the size of the facility, how many people are actually going to be there, I think that absolutely has to be addressed. But I am not opposed to having it there now. What it is away from most houses. And I don't think that even being near a house, I don't think that's going to affect anyone. Like I said, those that are using it for medical purposes, it's the right thing. I would much rather see someone taking part of medical marijuana as opposed to any type of painkiller, opiate, Oxycontin. That it's time for that stuff to go.
So I believe in the merits and the use of medical marijuana to treat various ailments. However, I do think that we have to be responsible about the placement of the dispensary, whether that's commissioning a traffic survey or talking to the residents around there, and I think we need to hold on making any decisions until the ward has a sitting city councilor representation.
I do support medical marijuana. I am concerned about the location of the dispensary because of the traffic flow. However, I will go on record to state I do oppose recreational marijuana, but it looks like that's what's going to come about. I work for Sheriff Tom Hodgins. I teach women inmates that have their college or high school and beyond. And I would say 85% of my students have an opiate problem, and most of it started with marijuana. And I must say I disagree with my opponent here, Kathy, because medical marijuana I support 100%. I have no problem with that. But it's a known fact that the marijuana dosage today is much stronger than the dosage of marijuana when I was younger. But I will support medical marijuana, and I will support it if when it becomes a recreational law, because it will be the law. But I do oppose that part of it. Thank you.
I think anything that brings revenue into the city is a great idea. I think especially with medical marijuana coming into the city. I know a lot of people are concerned about traffic flow. I drive that route every day. I think people speed. I think it'll be great. People are going to slow down while they're driving. They're going to be fine. Anything that brings in, it's going to be taxed. It's going to bring in revenue. It's going to help people. I've seen no problem with that. I'm totally for it.
As I indicated earlier, I'm a little bit worried about the traffic flow. I don't know that that's not a problem that we can't solve, that we can't study. The man it's been in the paper that this is not in any neighborhood, and I notice you said it's kind of in my neighborhood. I don't know how far it is from some neighborhoods. I find it, a couple of thoughts about it is, if you've ever seen people who have been affected by the opiate crisis, people who are in chronic pain, and people who have been hooked on opiates and are no longer with us, the use of medical marijuana cannot be discounted, and I think that the public is in favor, and I think we have to be, this has been voted on by the voters, And I am mindful of the will of the voters as to those votes. I do find it a little particular that 2 of the precincts out of the 36 in the city that voted against, as far as not the medical marijuana, but the recreational marijuana, they appear to want to locate the site right next to those 2 precincts, almost right on the line. I find that a little bit interesting. And so I think the issue has to be looked at. I think you have 6 people here at the table tonight who are saying, give us a chance to look at those issues and to study them. And I would hope that that certainly would be done.
Yeah, I think that the traffic problem is tremendous because it won't be so bad when it's medical marijuana. But when it's open for recreational, there'll be more people coming and more traffic. And right now, to come out of there, make a left turn to my neighborhood, which I'm around the corner. I don't object on the sense of medical marijuana being near me. I just object because it's a real traffic hazard. It really is. And I don't know if the State Department of Transportation looked into it, but I think it should be stopped now because if it's granted for medical marijuana, you'll have the end to become recreational marijuana, and it won't move. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Anybody have a question for the candidates? Go ahead. Looking for questions. You stuck that one, Alan stuck that one in on me.
Question.
All right, you're gonna form it in the, okay. Go ahead, Sue. You wanna form it in the,
It seems to me that as Tony there mentioned, I think there's too much emphasis on the financial part of it. This could bring in money. Anytime you start talking money in a situation like this, what control is there gonna be that's gonna be good enough that it's gonna be, a waste of money? I'm
I'm looking
against,
for the questions, Sue. What are the rules?
what are the rules?
Rules are yet to be determined.
They have to be determined.
Yeah,
And that's-
because
who's
we're
gonna
waiting-
determine the rules?
The state determines the rules, the Board of Health will oversee them. So we're waiting for some of those determinations to come through now.
Because I'm against marijuana, period.
Okay. That's great, now they all know. Anybody have a question? You got another one? This guy came with a pocket full. Anybody else? All right, let's have another one. I'm sure these guys are itching to say something, so.
Ms. Suicide said something about the brown field. I just want to, everybody understand that what's going on with, right now, the cleanup in the harbor, and how the federal funds are being cut for that as we speak. So what is everybody here planning to do to, if that becomes a brown field site, to clean it up? We just don't want to tear the building down and then have a big fenced-in eyesore in our neighborhood. So, I mean, as we all know, the federal government is drying up funds for these kind of cleanups. So what is everybody gonna do to overcome that?
All right, so that's a great question. There are 2 Superfund sites, essentially, in Ward 3, with the river and Sullivan's Ledge. So why don't we start with Mark, and you can tell us what you think about that.
I mean, as far as Building 19, I don't know how much of a reuse the building has. I mean, all of you shopped at Building 19 at one point. I mean, the way the floors sag, how old that building is. If someone would come in and say, I'd like to reuse the building as it is, I think it would be almost a miracle if that happened. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think it has to, it probably will come down. And then I'm a little bit worried about the ownership of the property. I see it being transferred from, one corporation to another. I wonder if there are assets, if it's found that there's a large cleanup that's going to be necessary. Is this particular corporate entity going to be able to do it? Or are they going to go back to the city and they're going to say, well, help us out, spend taxpayer money and on private property? Now, there may be a way, if that happens, of over the long term being able to clean up a certain brownfields area, but we have no idea of the extent of it. We just know how factories operated way back in the continental screw era. If there's a way to bring, if it is a brownfield, and with some help, and we end up getting more tax money in the long run, I think those are things that we want to look at. I don't think we just write that property off for all time and just have a chain link fence, a rusty chain link fence, and then just a complete mess right in the middle of what I think is kind of the heart of the area where people shop in Ward 3.
I think first, obviously, we'd have to look at the health and safety hazards, but given that, it's another one of these issues where I think it should be up to the community of what they want to do with it. After we know what type of guidelines that we have when those things are discussed, it's up to the community, the people who live there, what they want to see done to it. I think it's an issue for the community, and I think that's how it should be dealt with.
Well, there are certain zoning laws that cover brownfields. So that's going to have to be looked in very carefully because, like Mark said, we do not know what lies underneath there. And most likely, the owner of that property is going to dismantle it and sell it off either in portions, parcels, or sell it to some company. We don't know which way that's going yet. And also, because I was looking at it as well, and it has changed hands, sometimes they'll go to LLCs, which are limited liability corporations. You don't always know who the holding partners are, so it can be distributed. So this is something that the community and the council has to take a look at, working in conjunction with surveying, with the zoning board, and possible remediation, and with the person who is selling the property as well, of the concerns of the community. Naturally, he wants to sell a successful business to someone who's going to operate and be relevant to our community. So if we work in hand with that, but it's just something we're going to have to monitor very carefully, particularly if it's a brownfield and they have regulations that cover that. Thanks.
So that would be effective in securing funds for brownfield remediation through my past life as a congressional aide. I worked with Keating, Warren, Markey, and Kennedy to secure federal dollars for this area, but also in my current day job, directing the region's economic development organization that's sanctioned by Mass Office of Business Development, that I can work with the Baker administration to address these sites. So I think it's about relationships, and I think it's about bringing people together to focus on these sites.
Well, I'm going to say pretty much about the same thing because I think everyone has the same concerns there. But it is privately owned, so we don't have say in who they sell it to, or the only say that we would have, or the government has, is if it ends up being a contaminated site. And there are regulations and things like that, and we would have to, whoever, the entire council and everyone that we agree with, we'd have to find where that money would come from, who's responsible, because what that owner's going to say, they're going to go back to the continental screw that was there before, and at what point can you place blame on a previous owner, even though that liability would fall under them? So there's a lot to look into, and that's not a simple question to answer, to say exactly what we're going to do and where we're going to get the money, but it's certainly something that I'm sure any one of us would look into and try to figure that out.
The funding, we all don't know what the funding is going to do. We don't know what the presidential administration is going to do. We can guess that a lot of these things are going to be defunded. For you and on your behalf, I would fight to get every penny we can to clean up these sites. The water, that river's been cleaned up, it's been the process of cleaning up, but we know what the companies did back then. It was a big dumping ground. It's a privately owned company. I think they should be held liable first. If there is an issue there, we don't know that for sure, but we'll have to look for alternatives, whether we turn to the state rather than the federal government to help clean up these sites.
I happen to be following the feed along with the New Bedford Guide and their feed, and looking at the questions that people are asking on New Bedford Guide. And they want to know basically about two things: taxes, roads, and education. So perhaps the candidates can address some of those issues.
Okay. I know there's a question over here. Did you have a question about any one of those three things? No? What's your question specifically?
My question?
Yeah.
What I'd like to know is there going to be accountability for some of these absentee landlords? I'm stuck in between two houses that are empty, and every winter, we have to shovel and make the path. A big branch, almost half a tree, fell in front of one of these empty houses. One of my neighbors cut it so it was smaller, but it's still sitting there. It's really disgusting the way these houses are being kept. The street, the sidewalks could be, and I'm just wondering if they can be accountable for some of the stuff that's going on in their property, on their property.
Okay. All right, so here's the thing. Now, there's 4 topics on the table. And I think going along here, so I don't have to, it's not to complicate things, but I think what we'll do is we'll ask, I'm not sure exactly how to ask the tax question. But I did see that question from the feed about schools, and that was about assessment testing, Common Core, that kind of thing. And I'll ask what the candidate's opinion on that is. Start with that, and then the roads, the Chapter 90 funding and the state of the road. So what I'll try to do is get all 3 of these questions asked in the next few minutes and let our candidates have an opportunity to answer them.
I'll start with education.
Sure, we'll start with Beth on education and your thoughts on Common Core.
My daughter, 9 years old, she's in 3rd grade, and I'm not a fan of Common Core. Where I see, I understand that they're trying to bring out abstract thought, and I'm not saying that, I don't see where it's coming from, but I do think it's ridiculous. I mean, there are times where, when she was in 2nd grade, I had to go online, and I used to have to go through Pearson Realize, which is the website that we use, to learn. And I'm sitting there learning with her. Sometimes it's not even clicking. I'm not a fan of Common Core, and I think that our students test lower because of it. I think that my daughter's 2nd grade teacher actually said this, that as they go into high school, if we keep seeing this, there's going to be a huge suicide rate, because these children who are very intelligent and only being judged on test scores think that they're stupid or that they don't get it. It's not that. It's the way in which they're being tested, not the way in which they think. I'm not an accounting core, and I think it greatly affects testing scores, and I would love to see away with it.
I agree with Bethany. I'm not a fan of Common Core either. Being on the New Bedford School Committee, I got an eyeful. I'm very disappointed where our educational system stands. In 1988 and 1993, New Bedford was listed as an all-American school. I got a good education from a public school system. The test scores are not where they should be. We're paying high administrative fees, big contracts to special people to do special compartmentalized education. My question is, if you're going to pay these fees, if you're going to pay for specialization, then you owe the city of New Bedford, and particularly the parents and the children above all, results. If you're not producing results, if we have 2 schools that are on a level 4 and a school that's almost by a level 5, if you have schools that are failing, how can you issue big contracts? How can you pay out big salaries? Why doesn't the school be held responsible? Now, I realize contracts are negotiated through the union. You don't have any recourse of that. But numerous times in the last several years, the superintendent has appeared before the city council asking for additional funds. I'm a bottom line lady. What are your results? Are these schools improving under your leadership? Even are they showing a slight result? Why do we have underperforming schools? We need a good educated workforce, because basically we're a blue collar area. And we need well-educated people. They'll be our future, our leaders. We have to bring people and good businesses into this community. If you don't have a good educational system in this city, trust me, you're not going to bring in families that want to be able to charter school. All these are afford that education. But we need to hold administrators and superintendents and people accountable for why our schools are underperforming in a state of Massachusetts, which is leading in the area, but we are not doing well, in my opinion. And I, as a member of the city council, would vote against any additional funding to any school support initiative that does not show proven results, and I'm adamant on that. Thank you.
So again, it's like an issue I keep coming back to, it's economic development and bringing jobs into the area because that provides the money to fund our schools. Our schools are currently underfunded, they're stretched, they're being asked to do more with less than like ever before. And so I just think that if we can get more funding into the schools, they can do a better job. And I think that the charter question is an important question. It was rejected by the voters of Massachusetts recently. And I don't know whether we should be putting more money into charters unless the legislature wants to step up and fill that, that funding gap. Because right now it's coming out of our general fund, our budget for the city. So I think that's something we have to look at seriously.
I think the comment I want to make is when I worry about cuts, when they talk about cuts to education, people that suffer at that point are the children. I think I was class of 74 in New Bedford High School, and we had everything offered to us. So when they start cutting music and they're making the wrong cuts. They have to cut, I would say, the top, the administration. And it's true, you cannot judge a child or grade them on test scores, because there are some people that just don't test well. They're smarter than some, but can't test. Those that can test might not have the same, whether it's common sense or knowledge or whatever, but every time I hear people talk about making cuts to education, I cringe. It's maybe the higher salaries that you want to make cuts there. Another issue that I always thought of when I was on city council, accountability. Even if we looked at, the schools department has its own funding, separate from the funding we have for the city. And who is accountable for, I mean, it might sound dumb, but all pencils, paper, there was, it said, I was just saying at that point that no one has to say or write down, like you would in the restaurant, I'm going to relate it to the restaurant business. When you do inventory, you know what you have. You know what you have to purchase. There was a lot of supplies being bought. They needed extra money for purchases and stuff. And I always questioned, well, who do they answer to? So I want to add accountability into that also. That might make more money available. I always end it with a smile. I can't help it.
As far as education and what programs there are, I would have to study that. But I want to parlay, well, we have many great teachers in our community that need support. We have a large immigrant population that I think helps play into that. So I think that needs to be addressed as well. As far as cuts go, I think that parlays into the tax question.
Go ahead.
I don't know about everyone else here. I'm a homeowner in the city, and my assessed value is quite a bit higher than what I feel the house is worth. I think that needs to be addressed. I think we should have an assessed value that is a realistic value, and that's what we should have to pay taxes on. What we do to make up for that revenue, we attract businesses and get as much people here. But I think it's time that we address how much money we pay in taxes in the city. If you look around at the other cities, their tax rates aren't as high. Now granted, they have to pay for their garbage in bags. I mean, we kind of luck out when it comes to that, although we have those plastic containers to deal with. But I think the assessed value is have to be addressed. I will end it with a smile.
In the early 1990s, when I was in the city council, there was a lot of state money that came along, and I remember even the school department indicating that they felt pretty lucky that we were almost flush with money. We were going to spend more for education. I think we all might feel that since the early 90s, we've spent more, but have we really got our money's worth for the extra money that we have spent? And I'm not sure that we have. As I said, I graduated from the high school here in the city. Both of my children went to New Bedford High School and graduated. And they were happy to go. There was a certain pride of going to New Bedford High School. But I think almost now, and I know, Henry, you teach at Voc, but a lot of people feel that Voc is really the quality high school, and as far as New Bedford, you know, it's like on a second rung. When I work in the juvenile court, we have these truant officers that come in, and the joke used to be that at Voc, because they didn't have to put up with things from the students, you'd be out of that school if you didn't want to do the work. And there was a truant officer from Voc, and he was kind of like the Maytag repairman. We never saw him. Nobody knew. When he came in, everybody didn't know who he was. That's because there was less trouble at Voc, and that's why Voc has moved up, and the high school, unfortunately, is saddled with all kinds of problems because they have to take everybody. But I think that these are things that we can work on. I mean, those rules don't have to stay status quo. There can be changes. If it's working in one part of the city, why can't it work in the high school that's in the other part of the city? So, thank you.
I have one comment, actually. Many people feel that by going to Voc, you're either going to be a plumber or a carpenter or a dental technician, when in fact the academic track is good. I have 4 grandchildren that went there. One is out of college, working on a master's. One is a junior at UMass, and 2 are freshmen, one at Mass Maritime, and one at Carolina Coastal University, and they're all very good schools. So the academic achievement possibilities there are quite stellar. However, if you mess up, you're out. And they do not tolerate misbehavior, truancy, and unlike other schools, and I'm a graduate of a public high school, and a very good university, but that was a long, long time ago, where you didn't mess around in school. But you have to...
to a question, the rest of these students' jobs. Looking for a question, Bill.
Okay, you want a question? All right, I'll be very, very quick. I'm trying to draw a parallel to some of the things that have been set up here.
Understood.
Okay, so, well, I'm done. I've just been severely chastised.
No, I gave you a hard time, and Alan snuck that one in on me, so I wanted to be fair about it, you know?
I'm going to be quiet. I'm sorry.
But I do agree with you. There was a certain stigma when I was in high school. We called the people who went to Voc Tech rejects, but really not knowing that really all it is you graduate high school with a trade while you go to college. My daughter actually wants to go to Voc to become a plumber so she can pay her way through college to be a lawyer. So, you know, it's the same thing.
I have the privilege of serving on an advisory board at
Is that a
Vocational.
question?
Well, I just wanted to tell you this. I think that we do, I agree with you there, Mr. Jennings. I think we need to concentrate a lot on the discipline. I think that's part of the problem at the high school. They do need to have stricter discipline, and it's difficult. I understand that, but I think that they have to start learning respect. And this is something that a lot of teachers aren't getting, and we need administration to back those teachers when those children are disrespectful to them. We can't tolerate it. If they can get the discipline like they did 4,000 students at the Brockton High School under control years ago, and that made New Bedford look like a great system when they got the discipline, we would do much better. We have to get discipline under control. And teachers and administration can't be afraid of being sued by parents. They have to be firm when the child gets out of line. It's a tough road to hoe, but we've let it go astray, and we need to start doing that. And I think one of the things, too, is we don't have vocational training that we used to in the school. And vocational has a great, program, and I see a lot of students that went to Vogue that go on to Wellesley, they go on to Yale, they go on to top-notch colleges because they've got that 9 days on, 9 days off. This is something that could be experimented with. We have a great school system in New Bedford. We just need to start taking a little bit more control of it. Thank you.
So before we digress too far, there was a question about roads and funding and infrastructure. So I think we should address that as well. Why don't we start with Hugh, and then we'll go this way and back around.
Sure. So, going around knocking doors, I've been hearing it's roads, and plowing is another thing that I hear is needs some attention in the ward. But, so I'd be glad to focus on the roads and the potholes. They're not the sexiest issues, but it's the foundation. It's setting table for everything else. If you're trying to bring businesses into the area and they can't drive through or to the site without getting a flat tire, it's not very welcoming. So I'd be glad to focus on it.
It's amazing how it's like a domino effect. We talk about taxes, which he touched on. I can talk on taxes also at this point. But real estate background of 25 years, and looking at the assessed value of homes it's crazy. Because what these homes are assessed for, number one, if the appraisal doesn't come in anywhere near the amounts, so that the taxes are higher. So how do we lower taxes? It goes back to bringing more businesses in. How do we bring more businesses in? We have to have a good education system for anyone, like Jill had pointed out, but to bring people into the city, it's touching on every single, each one affects the other. You have to have good schools. You have to bring business into the city. By bringing businesses into the city, you're gonna have lower taxes. You're gonna have more money for infrastructure. So it's like, where do you actually really start with this? And the focus, in my opinion, on every single category there. But to me, from a business point of view, you have to bring the businesses in, and you have to give them a reason to come here. And I think everything else falls into place.
I live on Loftus and Shirley, and on Shirley there are 2 houses. So we were probably one of the last people to get plowed out. So I'm out there with my snow blower, even though I'm not supposed to be, making sure I have a path so a car can get through. I understand that there's plowing issues. What I don't understand is they plow during the storm, but then it's New England. We warm up like a day or 2 later. Why they're not out there cleaning up those areas that they can, I think that needs to be addressed. And as far as the conditions of the roads themselves, I testified before judiciary committees in Boston, so I have no problem going to the State House, trying to get the funding that we need to make sure our roads are safe and clean. I think in the Loftus area, they have pretty good roads up there. Although when you come down Hathaway Road, I don't know who did that, but right when you get down by the turn onto, is it Shawmut? It like vibrates. You ever see that? So I don't know who put that road in right in front of the Cumberland Farm, but that should be looked at as well.
I guess it's interesting that, you know, we have a race in where we have a March primary. We're running in the winter where normally we'd be running in the late summer and fall. I think these are kind of bread and butter issues. I mean, everybody wants the budget to be watched. When I was on the city council, I offered more in the way of dollar cuts than any other council who was there for the years that I was there. Try not to cut the essential city services, but these are bread and butter issues. Everybody wants the roads plowed. Everybody wants better roads. I can just say that I've had 4.5 or 5 years of handling calls from as far as problems on certain streets. I hope it hasn't changed too much, but I just want to cite my experience in that, and I just believe that that'll be an ongoing issue.
I think this issue is definitely one that I was speaking about before, which is about getting the community involved. You'll notice that where you see the streets that are the most paved or the streets that are the best plowed are definitely the streets with the areas with the most condensed people who vote. That's because they're reaching out to their counselors, they're reaching out to the people in their community saying, hey, I need this done. And that's who you reach out to. I think not a lot, but some of these issues can definitely be addressed through community outreach. I also think as far as taxes go, I know this city, this city rests on the homeowners and the business owners. That's where all of this money comes from. That's everybody who's taxed, and it's hurting everybody. There are a lot of programs. my brother just emailed Jeff Weaver, he worked on the Sanders campaign, and there are programs that are for cities like New Bedford that are poverty stricken, that have a specific amount of people who live in poverty or fit a certain demographic. And I think we can really kind of try to reach out to these programs. You know, they're not, I'm not going to tell you where they are, but there is money there. There is help for impoverished cities like our own.
Well, safety is important to me. I would work diligently to keep on top of them, take constituent calls. We have a lot of, whether you're elderly, middle-aged, or young, whether you're from a wealthy area or a poorest neighborhood in our ward, safety has to be a prime issue. No one should be stuck driving a car into a huge pothole, lose an access on their car, fall, break a hip, break a leg. That's always been an ongoing issue. I think, I agree, I think, let's ask the question properly. I think that is important. We have to get constant calls, be on top of them, keep on following up, do the best we can, because this is always, from the time I was a child, been an ongoing issue of potholes, not filling the roads. But safety and infrastructure is extremely important to the city. And of course, to bring in the revenue to do this, again, we're also back to bringing in good jobs, because jobs are what drives up the revenue that you can address a lot of these issues with. And we have to be oriented with a zoning board, with tips that we offer, tax incentives, to bring jobs into the neighborhood and to make sure that the council works to be user-friendly with people who are coming into the city, bringing good jobs about to help our community, because it's almost like a snowball effect, and one feeds off the other. But education and taxes and safety, that safety is an important thing. I have a lot of elderly neighbors in my building who are afraid to go out. They're on walkers, and they're just afraid to go out. That's something we have to constantly remind to have it repaired.
So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take, Marcia, do you have a question?
I just want to make sure that the lady over here.
I've been taking care of it.
Okay. I'm all set.
Absentee landlords.
I'm
So-
all set.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. What I'd like to do, I'm sorry, what I'd like to do, because it's almost 20 of 8. What I'd like to do is give Stu an opportunity.
If you want.
Do you have a quick question?
Yeah.
What is it?
Okay, with all these improvements and all these things, my question is, you think that the state is going to help you? After what they did with their raises and everything, they're gonna milk this town even more. So I don't believe that a lot of these things that you want to do and what need to be done will be done because the state is not gonna do it. They're not gonna let you, because already I hear rumblings that they're gonna raise the taxes, the state tax. All right, you're smiling. So where is all these good intentions of doing these things gonna happen? They can't. The state will not do it until we change our affiliation. Thank you.
Thank you, Stu.
Can't do it.
I can certainly ask them to state that. So one of the questions, one of the questions here, what I'm gonna do here is, we'll ask this question, I'll give you all, I think maybe 3 or 4 minutes, an opportunity to sort of just, wrap it up. Ask for the vote, say goodnight, that kind of thing, and then we'll, we've got the hall till 8 o'clock, so you're welcome to stay and mingle with folks and get some more, a little more FaceTime with everybody. The question here from the floor is, where do you live in Ward 3? So, why doesn't everybody, when you stand up and, give your little final parting words here, let everyone know exactly where it is you live in the city?
And how long you've lived in the city and how long you've been back in the city if you moved out. And mind you, we did research on everybody. So.
Well, now, just so that we're, just so that we're, we're all on the same page here. As long as you're a resident of Ward 3 and you have the qualifying signatures, you could run the seat. So, why don't, Mark, could we start with you? Can we go right down the line here, just kind of give your closing words?
Sure. Well, I was born in New Bedford. I went to New Bedford High School. I went away to college to Boston. I served in England, in the British Parliament for a period of time. I studied law down in Arkansas, the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville. Then I returned to New Bedford, and I've been here ever since then. I've lived in the South End. I've lived in Ward 5, where I owned a house. And as of January of 2010, I've lived at 805 Hathaway Road, which is up by Riccardi's, up near Apple Tree Lane. It was a house that was built in 1849, I guess. It used to be a chicken farm. We're not raising any chickens at the moment, but yeah, it's a comfortable house, and we've enjoyed being there these 7 years, and we like the neighborhood. I would just say in closing that I am a little new to the neighborhood in terms of only living here that number of years, but I've lived in the city almost my whole life. I know the streets. I have families who I work with, children who are in foster care who I visit. When I was getting signatures, I walked down some of those streets, went into some of those same houses. But it's a beautiful ward. There's a lot of nice streets, a lot of nice people that I've met. And I thank you for tonight, for setting up the meeting. And I thank you all for coming. This is the kind of dialogue where I think candidates learn from what people are interested about. We can speculate all we want. We can have issues that we care about. But I think what is most important is the feedback from the people. So I thank you all for coming tonight.
I live right around the corner over here on Dual Street. This street, cute. I grew up actually on Mount Pleasant Street. I played baseball at Dyersfield. Go Panthers. I believe council is in desperate need of new faces, new voices. I think we definitely need community to come back together. And I hope everybody takes a look at that.
I live at 950 Hathaway Road in New Bedford, right near Riccardi's, in a condominium. I was born and bred in New Bedford. I graduated from New Bedford High School. I went right to work with a bank and went to the American Institute of Banking to get certified in banking. I specialized in finance and bankruptcy legislation. I worked in the bank from 1967 to 1996, at which time I retired from there, and then I went to work for the credit director from the Cape Cod Times and the Standard Times for 11 years. After that, in 2011, I was hired by Case. I was their housing director, and that ended in 2012. And from 2012 till present time, I've had the privilege of working part-time for Tom Hodgen in education. I was a member of the school committee. This is my community, and it's important to me. I've been a resident in this ward for 10 years come this May. Prior to that, I lived in Ward 1. And I think dialogue between people and their counselors and holding accountability to your counselors is extremely important. I try to give good constituency service. I take pride in that because my name is my character, and that's what, promotes me. And I will work very hard if elected. And I will tell you, I am also a proponent of term limits. I do believe in that. Everybody doesn't have to, I do. But I would like you to consider me. I will work really hard for you. And believe me, as a resident of this ward, I understand where you're coming from. Thank you very much for your time and courtesy.
So I think that question was directed towards me, in a way. I'm pretty new to the ward, but I've spent the majority of my adult life working in New Bedford. In 2010, I came here for law school. I lived in downtown, and then a year ago, I lived in Attleboro due to needing access for a significant other to get on the commuter rail. When my lease expired, I moved back here because I direct a partnership that represents New Bedford. And I'm, as soon as I heard that, Henry, you're stepping down, I saw it on Facebook. It just keyed for me. There's a job here. I'm qualified to do it, and I'd love to have your vote. And I think I could get to work for you right away. Thank you.
I live on Rockdale Avenue on the same land that my parents bought in 1978. It's a 4-acre parcel that was at the old Casey farm. And my children were born where I live now, they were born there. There's a 2-family in the front, that was my parents, they both passed away. My brother has that house, my sister has a house where the barn was, and my house is where our little cottage was. We expanded, I expanded it. My children are now building their houses in the back lots. It's not gonna be a big subdivision, it's family only. So we call it the Pereira Compound. I've lived in New Bedford for 60 years, I was born at St. Luke's Hospital. As far as being your city councilor, if you need someone that has a heart for the city. I built the first new building in the downtown area, corner North Water and Center. I've had multiple businesses in this area. I've invested the majority, I do have a house in Florida. The majority of my money is invested here where I live. I believe in this city. We were the greatest city. When it goes back to Wayland, if you go Wayland days and stuff. My family has a heart for the city. To me, if I would want to be represented by somebody, it would be somebody that lives here, knows it, and loves this city, and I do. And I would appreciate your vote. Thanks.
And on that, I hate leaving the city to go to a different restaurant. My friends are always saying, let's go to Providence. I'm like, why not New Bedford? They have great restaurants here. I brought in friends from out of town, and they're like, wow, this is New Bedford? And I said, yeah, it is. And they're amazed, and they come back and they eat here and they drink here. My house that I bought about 7 years ago, how I know that? I just paid off my heat loan, so my furnace is actually mine now. I live at 385 Loftus Street. We have a great park right across the street that opened a couple of years ago, Haskell Park. I don't know if any of you have been through it, but it's a lovely place to walk in the summer. It's one of the safe areas in the city, I think, because not many people know about it, but it's a great place to see and visit. I've had a business here for, I think it's 16 years now, in downtown New Bedford, on the 4th floor above the Portuguese consulate. My Portuguese, I can say dosh, because that's the floor they're on, right? I help out when I can with Portuguese people. I started out by, I was born in upstate New York. I am not a New Bedford original person. But what I want you to understand is, I'm an attorney, which, what does that mean? Well, before I was an attorney, I was a pizza cook. I was a manager of a Pizza Hut. Before that, I worked in a shoe factory. Before that, I worked on a farm. It only took 1 week of milking cows to know that I was not going to stay on a farm. What can I bring you? Well, through that all is hard work and a hard work ethic. I'm not one of those ivory tower people. I'm a hard worker. Before this, I was at a board meeting, and I said, I have to leave, I gotta go meet with the candidates. I also am president of a court-appointed association that is statewide. I've worked with them for about 3 or 4 years now. I've testified at Boston before the Judiciary Committee. At one time, a bill of mine was being presented of our group. I called every phone number at the State House. I'm like, am I going to be on a list because of this? From everyone there to make sure that they were going to show up to vote on my legislation. And that's how I represent the city too. I would make sure that your voices are heard, and I'm here to listen and to understand what the issues are.
I have a question. I'm sorry, I apologize, I must have missed it, Hubert. I didn't hear where you said you lived.
Alongside of Lofts.
Oh, okay, thank you.
All right, so I think we should give them all a little round of applause. I think it's safe to say this will conclude the meeting. You guys have an opportunity to say hello to folks. And I'd like to thank you, Mr. Guy, for being here, and you guys from Bedford Live for coming out, and WBSN, thank you very much for being here.